Serious. People of Reddit that believe in the paranormal, ghosts, demons, angels, etc. What exactly happened to make you start believing? This was in the early 2000s, before Bluetooth and before wireless internet was popular. When I was younger, I would visit with my aunt in Youngstown, Ohio every summer. I had a lot of cousins, one of which's bedroom was in the basement. My aunt was a very southern religious Christian who would have her home blessed upon moving in. We were told not to watch scary movies in the basement because it was never blessed when they moved in. They had forgot that room, and that my cousin who lived in there had a history of weird things happen. Well, being the little bad kids we were, me and my 3 cousins of similar age, 12 to 14, went down there and watched Ghost Ship and The Ring back to back. When the movies were over, we turned on the lights and started to talk about how scary the movies were. All of a sudden, a boombox on the mantle turned on mid-conversation and started playing the ballroom dancing music from a scene in Ghost Ship. We all froze immediately and after a second, decided to check it out. We looked to see if it was plugged into the TV or something. Nope. We looked at the screen and it was tuned into a local pop radio station, yet still playing this really out-of-place ballroom music. We then unplugged it and nothing changed, it still kept playing music. We flipped it upside down and looked to see if it had batteries. Nope. There was a place for them, but it had none inside of it. At that point, we got so freaked out, we bolted upstairs. The music played on the speakers for like 3 or 4 hours until my older cousin came home. We told him about it and he took us down into the basement to check it out. Sure enough, it was still playing. So he had us get into a circle and we prayed over it. It did not stop. So we took it outside and smashed that boombox with a hammer until it stopped, then burned the parts in a bonfire. I am not very religious these days, but I can tell you that my cousins and I still have no explanation as to what happened that day. The house is very old and has a history of ghost stories told by people who have lived there and many members of my family who would spend summers there. Other phenomena experienced there were full-body ghostly apparitions, trombone playing at night in the attic, doors opening and closing over carpeted floors, shadows, red eyes, etc. Very weird house to grow up in, and I have lots of other stories like this. I guess I'll put my story here, though there's not much to tell. About 2 or 3 months ago, I was on a tour in a national park in the Amazon. It was a 5-day tour and we slept at a different place every night, except the first and the last night. This was a tour with just me and a guide on a canoe in the middle of the jungle. Most nights, we slept at a place where there were other people, tourists and guides, but the 3rd night was just me and the guide. We were at this little cabana in a small clearing on the side of the river. It was really just a bamboo platform raised on poles with a palm frond roof. Now mind you, the only way of getting to this place was by canoe, and anyone on the water at night has a headlamp, and we were a few hours of rowing away from the nearest stop on the river anyways. There was nothing else there but thick jungle vegetation that you can't walk through, especially at night. Anyways, we went to sleep on the platform, with me positioned between the guide and the river. About 30 minutes after we laid down, I was having a hard time falling asleep. I was basically laying on hard bamboo without much cushion when I heard a couple of noises. The first was a loud knock, knock, knock on the canoe on the river bank. I didn't think anything of it until a few seconds later, I heard a very distinct ahem, like a man clearing his throat coming from about 10 feet away off the edge of the platform. The guide was asleep in the opposite direction of the noise, so it wasn't him. There were no headlamps from other people there, and there would have been other noises if someone was there. The guide had been telling me about their beliefs of these things called doins that live in the jungle around there. Basically just mischievous imp spirit things that will prank you if you don't believe they exist. So my first thought was, maybe just a doind, and rolled over and eventually found sleep. In the morning, I asked the guide about what I heard, and he told me that he heard something else last night below the platform underneath him, and that it was very common at that cabana to have these sorts of experiences. So common that most of the guides won't stay there overnight when they are alone. He told me a bunch of different things ghosts would do there, like lift a piece of the bamboo up underneath you when you were sleeping, or pull the string on one of the corners of your mosquito net to make it fall on you. He also said there was another cabana nearby that they had to stop using because so many of the tourists were having frightening things happen to them, and we were sleeping at the replacement cabana. The Congress Hotel in Chicago really made me believe in ghosts. So my dad and I were in town to see a U2 concert, and we found a pretty cheap hotel that looked nice, I guess, so we went to the Congress. The hotel looks straight out of the 50s, the lobby area like an old movie. The hallways in the hotel are always gloomy and look like The Shining, and the rooms are creepy. So I just thought that it was an old hotel and it was kind of creepy. So when we got back in the room after a late dinner, you automatically just get the feeling that someone is watching you and is present, but you don't see anything. After the first night, my dad claimed to hear ghostly moaning and chains and shackles in the night. Weird, maybe the neighbors are getting it on or something. Anyways, when I take a shower the next night, still feeling that I'm being watched and I'm going to get slashed in the shower, I walk out of the shower and I have 3 defined red marks across my chest, like claw marks. I'm freaked out since they were like cuts underneath the top layer of my skin. The next night, I just heard noises and shackles again, like my dad did the first night, and I couldn't go to sleep without listening to music. I would not recommend the Congress. Turns out that it's the most haunted hotel in Illinois, and lots of weird deaths have happened. Also, an entire floor is blocked off because of a dark woman who haunts it constantly. In the walls, people have seen the shackles guy, which is who I heard, and other weird stuff and self-ending have happened in the hotel. Flurbo the Congress. The house that I used to rent and later bought and rented out had some odd happenings. There were times where I would, for lack of a better term, feel like I was having a panic or anxiety attack. It was always accompanied by a feeling of paranoia, like being watched, regardless if anyone else was around. It would last about 30 seconds or so, then it would be gone. I never mentioned it, but then one day, my wife told me about having the same experience. Another odd thing about that house was animals refused to go into the bathroom. When sitting my dad's dog, he would lay down at the bathroom door and just stare. I tried taking our cat in there a couple times, and he would start scratching and clawing at my arms and immediately jump down and run out of the bathroom. We recently sold the house, but when talking to a previous renter of mine, they told they wanted to offer to buy the house from me, but they never felt comfortable there. It was part of the reason they moved. Other than a few friends, I never told anyone of the experiences we had there. It wasn't until we bought the house we live in now that I truly began to have unexplainable things happen, rather than just feelings of paranoia and weird animal behavior. One morning, the wife and I were cuddled on the couch watching TV. Next to our TV was a rocking chair. Out of nowhere, the chair tilted forward, stayed there for a second or so, then rocked back and forth a couple times before stopping. It looked exactly like someone had been sitting there, leaned forward, and stood up. I thought I was imagining things until I looked at my wife, and she was staring at the chair too. She saw the exact same thing. I tried to recreate the situation, but there was no way I could make that chair do anything like that again. Shortly after that, the voices began, almost always in my son's room. I heard a female voice in there once, my wife had heard it, and later my brother, without any prior knowledge of what was going on, told me he heard a female voice in there as well. There had also been some other odd occurrences, but nothing that I couldn't rationalize away. Strange noises and the like. There was one time while I was home alone and in the basement that I heard footsteps walking across the floor above me. I ran upstairs and checked it out, but there was no one else there. This all happened over the course of about 9 months or so. We never felt uncomfortable here, never threatened in any way. We even named our guest Molly. Eventually we had a paranormal team come and investigate. They had some personal experiences, heard a voice in my son's room, and recorded an EVP, although nobody could really tell what it was saying. The strange thing is that, ever since the paranormal group was here, everything just stopped. Not super wild or anything, but this was fairly recent and has kind of kept me open to the idea of ghosts, supernatural things. My family and I stayed at this fancy house whilst on holiday this summer. It was situated next to this huge farm in the English countryside. The house seemed to have been redone, it was modernized, and all but some of its old features seemed to have been kept in the design, like old wooden beams panels, visibly embedded in the wall, and a pretty cool fireplace. All kind of added to the vibe of the house. The place was huge, and I got my dibs of one of the top floor rooms, and my cousin took the room beside me. At first it was just minor stuff, like lights flickering, only on the top floor, my room being significantly colder at night. I was complaining how freezing cold my room was, but it was during the summer, and everyone had sworn they were boiling hot and couldn't sleep during the night because of the heat. There was no AC in the house, and my windows were shut. The weirdest thing was when I went upstairs to get my phone charger and heard loud coughing coming from my cousin's bedroom. I went to knock on the door to ask if he was all good. We had just gone hiking the whole day, but it was locked and I saw no light coming from the bottom of the door. I figured he just wanted some rest or whatever. So I go downstairs, where the whole family was chilling, and asked my aunt if my cousin was okay. She goes, "Yeah, he's fine, why?" He was sitting in the living room, sprawled out on the sofa watching TV. There was no way he could have made it downstairs before me. I told them what happened and they went upstairs to find the bedroom door unlocked and the lights flipping on. I noped right out of there.